Hey everybody, this is Steve, and does it ever seem like the church is playing a game of thrones? First, yeah, I know it's been a while since we've made a new video, and no, we're not exactly back. At least not with weekly videos. We've got some mini-series and other special items in the works, and we've got a link to an update down in, you guessed it, the doobly-doo. And of course, you should make sure that you're subscribed to this channel and that you click the little bell so you don't miss any new videos. 2 of the new videos we're working on are special episodes of Be the Bee for a very special time in the church. Because, as you've probably heard, the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America has a new archbishop. And when Archbishop Elpidophoros comes to America next week, the first thing that's going to happen is his enthronement on June 22nd. And that word, enthronement, can be really confusing for people. After all, a bishop isn't a king or a politician, so why does he need to be enthroned? And that's why we're back with this special episode, to clear things up and explain what's going on. So put on your hard hats because we're about to drop some knowledge on you. Back in episode 116, we covered the basic idea of what hierarchy means in the church. The church is a body. And just like different organs and members perform different functions in the body, all working together for the health of the body, the church is made up of different people with different talents and different responsibilities. And in episode 117, we used the vestments that clergy wear to help introduce the role of deacons, presbyters, and bishops. These offices go back to the very earliest days of the church. In fact, it was the apostles themselves who selected the first bishop of the church, St. James the Just. We encountered this James way back in episode 78, when we explored what happened at the Council of Jerusalem, when the early church assembled to answer a difficult question. Because he was the Bishop of Jerusalem, the place where the Christians assembled for this council, James had a certain authority in the conversation. And this reflects a really basic and really important principle about bishops in the church. A particular place is supposed to have one particular bishop. The Greek word for bishop is episkopos, which literally means overseer. And that's exactly what bishops are supposed to do: oversee what's happening in the church in a particular place. So what does all this have to do with thrones and enthronements? A lot, actually, because it's the enthronement that places a bishop in the particular place he oversees. Every bishop is the bishop of a particular place. St. James the Just, as we've already seen, was the Bishop of Jerusalem, and we can think of other great saints who were bishops of other places. St. Ignatius was, in the late 1st and early 2nd century, the Bishop of Antioch. St. Gregory the Theologian was, in the 4th century, the Bishop of Constantinople. And in our own day, Theophilos is the Bishop of Jerusalem, and John is the Bishop of Antioch, and Bartholomew is the Bishop of Constantinople. Each of these bishops, just like all bishops throughout church history, is the bishop of a particular place. And each place a bishop serves normally has a special church called a cathedral. And this is where the seat of the bishop can be found. Archbishop Elpidophoros, for example, is going to be enthroned at Holy Trinity Cathedral here in New York. In Greek, the word for the seat of the bishop is cathedra. That's where the word cathedral comes from. While people tend to translate cathedra as throne, that isn't necessarily right, though we'll get to that later in the episode, because the word literally means a chair or seat. That's important because in ancient times, a seat was a place of authority. In fact, in the early church, the preacher would sit while delivering a sermon, and the people would stand while they listened. The seat was a sign of the preacher's authority to teach. And that's why the bishop of a diocese has his seat in his cathedral. It's a sign of his authority to guide, to teach, to oversee the church in a particular place. And when a man first becomes the bishop of a particular place, the first thing he does is take his seat. He takes his place in his diocese or archdiocese so he can begin to oversee the church in that place. Now, if you live in a place like the United States, you've probably realized something. There are a lot of bishops of particular places. In fact, here in New York, I think there are 5 Orthodox cathedrals on the island of Manhattan alone, with more in Brooklyn. We've developed a tendency, to see bishops not as overseers of the one united church in one particular place, but rather of different, divided groups. So in this context, an enthronement is both a cause for joy and an opportunity for reflection, because sadly, we don't yet live in a reality where one place has one bishop, at least not here in America. But an enthronement is also a cause for hope, because seeing a bishop take his seat in his cathedral as part of a service, in the context of prayer, reminds us of who the bishop really is. It reminds us of what the church really is. As we said before, the Greek word for bishop literally means overseer, and for a variety of reasons, that's become primarily an administrative role. But from the very beginning, the bishop's role didn't simply mean overseeing an office or administration. It meant overseeing the liturgical life of the church. It meant leading the church in worship, which, as we covered way back in episode 94, is when the church assembles to be what God has called us to be. Earlier in this episode, we mentioned St. Ignatius, who was Bishop of Antioch in the late 1st and early 2nd century. His letters are an incredible witness to what the church was from the very beginning, especially when it comes to the role of clergy. And there's one thing he wrote that has really stuck out for me. Wherever the bishop appears, there let the congregation be. St. Ignatius saw the bishop as primarily the overseer of worship. He encouraged bishops to lead frequent services, and for the faithful to always be there to join him in glorifying God. Because the bishop, surrounded by his presbyters and deacons and faithful in worship, is an image of the kingdom. It's an image of God enthroned in his kingdom, surrounded by the bodiless powers and by his saints. The seat of the bishop can be seen as a throne, yet not the throne of an earthly prince or worldly king. Rather, it is the throne of the Prince of Peace, the throne of the King of Kings. Because even though different bishops oversee the church in different places and at different times, Christ alone is the head of the church. And when 2 or 3 gather in the Lord's name, when we gather together in prayer and worship, that invisible reality becomes visible. When we truly live as the church, our leaders don't simply stand in for an absent Christ or represent Christ. They reveal him to be truly present, here, in our midst. And when we gather in liturgy, when we all stand around the seats of our bishops, we see that truly we stand at the throne of the one God. And it's there, gathered at the throne of God, that we can see things with the eyes of a bee, see ourselves for who we really are. One body, the body of Christ who is at work in us and around us. And it is this one Christ, this same Christ who is at work in all cathedrals across all jurisdictions and ethnic groups, revealing us all to be his one undivided body, here and in all places on earth. So let's be the bee and stand with our bishops in prayer and worship. Be the bee and live orthodoxy. Remember to like and subscribe and share. I'll see you all next time. On your right, check out this new mini-series on youth safety, something really important for ministry. And below that, check out another great video from Y2AM. Thanks for watching, and may God bless you.